Hello, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to watch this presentation. My name is Claudia White, and I'm the Executive Director of the Durham Middlefield Youth and Family Services. Today, I'll be sharing highlights from the 2025 Youth Survey conducted in partnership with Chanana Consulting. This data helps us understand the current challenges and strengths among our youth in our community, and it guides where DMYFS will focus its prevention and wellness programming over the next couple of years. Our survey included 443 students in grades 7 through 12, representing about 80% of all students in those grades in the RSD 13 school system. The gender breakdown was 54% female, 44% male, and about 1% identifying as non binary or transgender. In terms of race and ethnicity, the majority of respondents identified as white, followed by multiracial, Hispanic or Latino, and smaller percentages identifying as Asian or other racial backgrounds. This helps us understand the cultural context of our data, though we recognize that Durham and Middlefield remains fairly homogeneous communities. The youth survey was conducted in April 2025 across grades 7 through 12 in the RSD 13 school system. With an 80% participation rate, we consider this a representative snapshot of our student population. However, we do want to acknowledge some limitations. Because the survey is taken during advisory period, students who are absent, truant, or suspended are not included. That means some of our most vulnerable youth, those already struggling with attendance, may not have their experiences reflected here. From this data, several areas of concern emerged: self-harm, depression and suicide, bullying, substance use, including alcohol, nicotine, and cannabis, phone and social media use, disordered eating, unhealthy relationships, and feelings of safety and connection at school. These themes provide the foundation for our ongoing prevention and education efforts at DMYFS. Let's start with mental health. When asked whether they had hurt themselves on purpose without the intent to die, 7.5% of students, the equivalent of 2 full classrooms, answered yes. We also asked about feelings of sadness and hopelessness lasting 2 weeks or more, a key indicator of depression. 22% of high schoolers and 12% of middle schoolers reported these symptoms. Girls were nearly twice as likely as boys to report feeling depressed. When asked about suicide, 8% of students said they had seriously considered attempting suicide. 6.5% had made a plan, and 2% had attempted. These numbers represent real students in our community. Depression scores in our 2022 survey included 33 shared they felt depressed in 2 weeks in a row. 12% made a plan and 4% attempted. We also looked at what other behaviors are linked to depression. Students who reported feeling depressed were significantly more likely to engage in risky behaviors such as skipping school or riding with a drunk driver, exhibit self-harming behaviors such as physical self-harm, irregular eating, or using substances, and report a lack of a trusted adult in their lives. Self-harm is not a mental illness, but it signals a need for better coping skills. The connection between depression, risky behaviors, and substance use underscores the importance of early intervention, supportive adults, and accessible mental health resources. This is why DMYFS continues to prioritize prevention, and connection. Bullying. Nearly 1 in 4 students reported being bullied on school property. That means that in nearly every classroom, there's likely at least a few students who are in the same room as their bully. Community survey data from adults also show that 62% are very concerned about bullying and meanness among youth. Bullying doesn't just hurt feelings, it has measurable long term impact on mental and physical health. Victims of bullying are significantly more likely to experience depression, anxiety, and psychosomatic symptoms such as headaches and stomach aches. These effects can last well into adulthood. Bullying is also associated with lower academic performance and school avoidance. And it's not only the victims who are at risk. Students who bully others are more likely to later engage in substance use, violence, and criminal behavior. So, addressing bullying is really about addressing both sides of harm: the social emotional needs of those being targeted and the behavioral health needs of those doing the targeting. At DMYFS, this data reinforces why our prevention work must include school climate initiatives, peer leadership programs, and education around bystander intervention and empathy. These programs help students feel seen, valued, and responsible for one another, which is at the heart of prevention. Substance use. Alcohol continues to be the most commonly used substance among local youth, and perhaps more concerningly, the most normalized. When asked whether it's acceptable to drink underage, 17% of youth, roughly 70 students, agreed that it's okay. Perceptions like these are strong predictors of future use. When we look at risk perception, the concern deepens. 17% of respondents said that drinking 5 or more alcoholic beverages once or twice a week poses little or no risk. In other words, 1 in 6 youth believe binge drinking is largely harmless. We also see social norms at play. 20 students said their friends wouldn't care at all if they drank nearly every day, and another 33 said their friends would only care a little. That's the equivalent of about 4 classrooms of students who perceive little to no peer disapproval around alcohol use. 43% of students said it's easy to get alcohol in our community. That means nearly half of teens could access alcohol if they wanted to, despite being underage. That is why DMYFS, along with Middle School and High School Edge Club, support awareness campaigns around the social hosting laws with their Sticker Shock campaign. And while many teens aren't drinking themselves, we still see high risk behaviors around impaired driving. 5% of high school students reported driving after drinking, and 18% said they have ridden with a driver who has been drinking. Additionally, 22% reported texting and driving, showing a broader trend of risky decision making behind the wheel. From a prevention standpoint, these numbers tell us that the issue isn't just access, it's attitude. Our role at DMYFS is to work with schools, families, and law enforcement to shift norms, increase perceived risk, and educate both parents and youth about the real consequences of underage drinking. Programs like community education campaigns, parent workshops, and school based prevention curricula are all essential to changing these perceptions. By making sure youth understand that alcohol use is not a harmless or normal part of adolescence, we can reduce early initiation and its long term effects on brain development. Nicotine use, particularly through vaping, continues to be a major concern among youth. When asked about the risk, 17% of students said using a nicotine vape daily poses little or no harm. And just as concerning, nearly 60 students said their friends either wouldn't care or would only care a little if they used a vape. This tells us that nicotine use is increasingly seen as socially acceptable among peers. Over 30% of students said that getting a vape device is easy, even though sales to minors are illegal. At DMYFS, we're working with schools to counteract these trends by providing education on the health impacts of vaping, student led prevention campaigns through the Edge Club, and parent outreach to help adults recognize and respond to vaping behaviors. Our goal is not just to discourage use, but to help youth understand how marketing and peer influence affect their choices. Cannabis use also appears to be growing in acceptance. 24% of students said that using marijuana once or twice a week poses little or no risk. Over 22% said it's easy to get. That includes 44 youth who said it's very easy to access. The shifting legal landscape has created confusion for many teens, especially when marijuana is now legal for adults in Connecticut. This change in perception can lead youth to believe it's harmless, when in reality, early use can impair memory, attention, and motivation. For adolescents, cannabis use is linked to higher rates of depression, anxiety, and school disengagement. Regular use before age 18 is also associated with reduced cognitive functioning later in life. DMYFS continues to collaborate with our local coalition and schools to provide honest, research based education about cannabis use. We focus on helping youth distinguish between what's legal for adults and what's healthy for developing brains, while also supporting parents to have open, fact based conversations at home. While less prevalent, prescription drug misuse remains a serious concern. 28 students agreed that it's acceptable to take someone else's prescription for pain relief, and 9 students said it's okay to use prescription stimulants to do better in school. Even occasional misuse can be extremely dangerous, especially with the presence of counterfeit pills containing fentanyl. 9% of youth said using a prescription not prescribed to them poses little or no risk. This data underscores why DMYFS continues to prioritize opioid and prescription drug prevention, including safe medication storage and disposal initiatives. We work with families to promote proper use, disposal, and communication, and with schools to teach students that taking someone else's medication is never safe, whether it's for pain, stress, or academics. Phone and social media use. When it comes to technology, the data shows that nearly all students in grades 7 through 12 own a smartphone. Most use their phones for texting, watching videos, and social media, with middle schoolers reporting more gaming activity. 72% of high school students said they use their phone at least 1 hour during the school day, and 8% said they use them over 5 hours a day in school. That's a significant amount of time spent distracted, disconnected from peers, or influenced by online interactions. Encouragingly, many students recognize the problem. More than half said they believe overuse negatively affects mental health, and many have tried to cut back. Still, the social pressures surrounding constant connection make that difficult. Girls, in particular, are more likely to report feeling left out, excluded, or worse about themselves because of social media. And 8% of students said they have felt unsafe due to something said online. That's about 35 students, or more than a size of a full sports team. When we surveyed adults, over 80% said they believe RSD 13 should consider going phone free in schools. This shows strong community alignment around addressing tech overuse. Research consistently links heavy social media used with increased anxiety, depression, and self harm, especially among girls. DMYFS recognizes that phones and social media aren't inherently negative. They're tools, but like any tool, how they're used matters. We're committed to offering educational programs for both students and parents about digital wellness, online safety, and mindful technology use. These conversations help youth build healthier boundaries and reclaim time for real world connection. Disordered eating behaviors are another serious concern identified in this year's survey. 17% of youth reported irregular or unhealthy eating patterns, such as binging, purging, rigid food routines, or negative feelings associated with eating. Among high schoolers, that number rises to over 21%. Girls report disordered eating at more than twice the rate of boys. These behaviors often stem from deeper emotional struggles, anxiety, perfectionism, or low self esteem, and are reinforced by the social pressures young people face online and in person. Disordered eating in adolescence can lead to chronic health problems and increase the risk for eating disorders and depression later in life. Research also shows that anorexia nervosa is the mental illness with the second highest mortality rate, behind only opioid use disorder. At DMYFS, we recognize that prevention starts with how well we talk about body image and self worth. We're focused on creating space where young people can discuss their relationships with food, exercise, and appearance without shame, while also educating families and educators about early warning signs. Unhealthy relationships. In the area of relationships, 2.3% of students, about 10 youth, reported experiencing physical harm or sexual assault from a dating partner. Although the number appears small, the impact is profound. Teens who experience dating violence are at higher risk for depression, substance use, and suicidal ideation. These patterns can persist into adulthood, increasing the likelihood of future abuse or unhealthy relationships. Because this issue is often hidden, prevention means teaching what healthy relationships look like: communication, consent, respect, and boundaries. DMYFS addresses this through school based education, collaboration with local organizations, and supportive conversations for teens who may not yet recognize when a relationship has become unsafe. Feeling safe and connected at school is one of the strongest protective factors for youth mental health. While the majority of students said they feel safe, about 80 students, nearly the size of a graduating class, said they do not feel safe at school. Those students are also more likely to struggle academically and emotionally. The data on trusted adults is encouraging. 39% of students said they have a trusted adult at school, up from 27% in 2022. And 85% said they have an adult outside of the school that they can turn to. Still, nearly 10% of youth said they couldn't turn to a parent if they had a problem. Knowing where to go for help does not negate feeling safe. When asked how much stress or worry physical safety causes them in daily life, about 1 in 3 students reported some to a lot. Safety, both emotional and physical, remain a central theme across all areas of well-being. Research shows that trust between students and adults fosters open communication, deeper engagement, and resilience. At DMYFS, we believe connections is prevention. That's why so much of our work, from mentoring to leadership groups to parent education, centers on building those trusted relationships that can truly change outcomes for youth. In summary, the 2025 Youth Survey paints a clear picture of both challenges and opportunities. Our young people are navigating a complex world, one influenced by social pressures, technology, mental health struggles, and shifting norms around substances and relationships. Based on this data, DMYFS will continue focusing our prevention and wellness programming on the following areas: suicide, depression, and self-harm, disordered eating and body image, bullying and positive school climate, substance misuse and addiction prevention, cell phone and social media etiquette, healthy and unhealthy relationship education, and promoting connection, belonging, and overall wellness. The data tells us what's happening. Our programs are about responding to it. Every initiative we offer is designed to help youth feel seen, supported, and connected. Because when young people feel connected, they make healthier choices and our entire community benefits. If you'd like to learn more or collaborate with us on prevention programming, please reach out to myself or Jade Adelbert. Thank you for your partnership and continued commitment to the well-being of youth in Durham and Middlefield.